Hello again. Today's recipe is easy homemade oven yogurt. You need a few things for this. They're out on the counter. I've already poured out the milk. The volume of milk you will need is specific. Get a 4-liter or 1-gallon jug. They're pretty close. If you can get a 4-liter, it's better. 4-liter, and pour out 3 cups. So you will need 3.25 liters of milk in a large pan. You need a candy thermometer. You'll need 2 cups of instant skim milk powder, a wooden spoon. You'll need a whisk, a mixing bowl, and in the mixing bowl I have got 1.5 cups of plain yogurt. This will serve as the starter culture. It's important that the yogurt is not flavored, ideally has no sugar, and make sure it has active cultures. I always get a probiotic yogurt to make the best yogurt that I can. You will also need a 4-quart Pyrex pan to make this, which I'm going to sterilize now. I have a kettle of hot water. It's very important when you make yogurt that all of your instruments are very, very clean. The process of yogurt making is incubating good bacteria, and you want to make sure that you're only having the good bacteria and not the bad bacteria in your yogurt. So after the water's in, this will cool. You just let that cool down. The next step is to heat up your oven. I heat mine up to 200 degrees for 10 minutes and then turn it off. Okay, so I'll just let that warm up. I'll also start the milk up at medium heat. And I will be stirring it with the wooden spoon fairly constantly to make sure the bottom does not burn. You don't want to heat up the milk too fast because you don't want it to burn or stick to the bottom. The endpoint temperature that it needs to reach is 185 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'll heat up the milk and I'll come back then. Okay, it's been nearly half an hour. There's a few degrees left, about 5 degrees, so around 180 right now. The water is nearly cool, it's just warm right now. The yogurt, I gave it a quick stir, the whey started to separate. So I've got my 1.5 cups of yogurt here ready. And when it reaches the correct temperature, you can see how the appearance of the milk has changed. It's getting thicker and it's frothy and it smells really good and it's steaming. What I will do now is I will move this all over to the sink to cool it down rapidly. I've got the sink filled with cold water. Okay, so I moved the pan to the sink. It's been in here for about 5 minutes. I just checked the oven temperature briefly by turning it back on. It's around 150 right now. Now the key to this is you don't want the temperature so hot that it kills the bacteria, and you don't want it so cold that the cultures don't begin to grow. Okay? If you're using a yogurt maker, the yogurt maker maintains the temperature for you. When you're making this one, what you have to do is you have to get a higher temperature gradient that will go down and begin the culture process. Like you're sort of meeting it halfway through. So this has only been in the sink for about 5 minutes. Temperature has already dropped to around 135. What I'm going to do is I'll give this about a minute or two with continuous stirring because I want to make sure that the readings are accurate. When it gets to 125, I will move it back to the stove. Okay, I've got the yogurt back on the stove, or the milk actually. It's at 125. This will come out right now. The spoon comes out. Now we switch to the whisk. So what you do is you whisk in the skim milk powder. So that's in. I don't need a lot of milk, but I do need some, so I'll just get some in this bowl. It's about a cup or two. And I'll put that into the yogurt that has been on the counter at room temperature and whisk. Whisk that in. The reason you want to do this is to get the culture started at the beginning and to also reduce lumps in the finished product. Pour that back in. Okay. Stir that in. Now, I do recommend, usually I would just pour this, I do recommend that you get a ladle, so I'll go get one. Once you get practice, you can just pour the yogurt right into the pan, but if you're not good at it, it'll splash. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've got a ladle, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer a few ladles full of milk to the pan. If you wanted to, you could do the entire thing this way. I prefer just get enough in so I don't get a splash, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to pour it. Now this is where I was going to say that if you did get a gallon of milk, 1 quart is 1.14 liters, and I would be very careful about pouring this at the end, because if you're using a 4-quart pan with the additions, you may have a bit more and it will splash over. So you might want to be careful for the last couple of cups. Okay, so I'm going to move the camera again so I can get a good shot of this going in the oven. Alright. So you get one shot at this. Make sure you get it right. Pick up the pan very carefully. Do this very slowly. If you begin to rock or the pan begins to rock, just stop. Okay, you are going to put it on the rack. Let it sit for a second. Now this one is starting to rock. I'm just going to wait because I do not want to be cleaning up burnt milk off the bottom of the oven. There, that's in. The oven is still warm. Close it right away to keep the heat. Okay, it's been about 10 and a half hours since I put this in. I just got home from work. I took this out of the oven so you can see. Remember when I put it in, it was slopping all over the place? Well, there you go. Okay, we have yogurt beyond a shadow of a doubt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start transferring this to a container that I have cleaned and ready. Some people would scrape the stuff off the top. The milk has gotten just a little crunchy in the meantime. You could, but I find you'll lose a lot of it. So you can see the consistency. And this is at room temperature. After this is in the fridge for a few hours, it should take about 3 or 4 hours to set properly. You got some really good yogurt that you can then flavor either with some syrup, sugar, fruit, whatever you want. One last note I forgot to mention. If you use 2% milk, it is going to take a lot longer. I use 3% milk, so I got away with 8 or 10 hours. You should add probably another 6 or 8 hours if you're going to use 2%. I wouldn't even bother with skim. So, once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.